It's time. I'm pretty sure it's episode 44. If it's not, it's episode 45. Who's counting? We are. My name is Martin Devlin. I work for the platform. And alongside me, a man of international broadcast quality and ability. His name is Mark Watson. Watto, where are you and what are you doing?
I'm in a place called Huzhou, up in the Qinghai province of Western China. And I've been lucky enough to be asked to commentate the world's highest professional stage race in the world. So it's under the UCI. It's at a continental level, just below the World Tour. It features New Zealand trade team, Black Spoke Racing. And I've got to say, this tour, 8 days, is absolutely brutal. Now, the town of Huzhou that I'm in at the moment, I'm just walking through the streets, naturally sits at 2,200 metres, so what, talking almost 7,000 feet. The riders go as high as 4,300 metres. So at some point on this bike tour, they are going to be riding at 13,000 feet. Yesterday, they were at 11,500 feet for some of the big mountain climbs. Now, to give you an idea of how taxing that is, altitude, you'll get an altitude effect on the body. So if you want to acclimatise for altitude, you want to maybe try and increase your hematocrit through maybe a little bit of oxygen deprivation. That normally kicks in at 700 metres. So you can imagine what it must be like for riders at 4,200 metres. It is, Martin, I've got to say, some of the scenery coming from the helicopters yesterday, absolutely mind-blowing. Just blow your mind where this tour is taking us up. It's up on the Tibetan Plateau. It's just a hidden gem of China. Didn't know it existed. Stunning.
Apologise to me!
All right, well, I'm hoping that way up where you are, that they have satellite, that they have the interweb, that you are able to tune into Mendoza for what was a rambunctious All Black performance, including individual efforts from certain players who you've done nothing except slag and bag for the last 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, and I'm talking you know who. It starts with a B and it ends with Barrett.
Yeah, look, firstly, I thought Argentina were disappointing and I thought the All Blacks were brilliant. I mean, we both had a discussion last week where I think we sort of looked at that All Black team and I'm not sure we were convinced. And I think with what we've seen with Ian Foster over the last 4 years, we're probably entitled to that perception, probably entitled to that. There was a part of me that thought, if Argentina play the way Argentina can play, potentially we could lose that test. But that wasn't the case. And the All Blacks were very, very, very good. And great to see the likes of Lomax and De Groot really sort of stepping up, and good to see some of those players that have just come back into the squad performing at the highest level. Look, the jury's out for me still, though. The real test is this week against Argentina, against South Africa and New Zealand. They deliberately put out a so-called second string against the Wallabies. They've got two teams. They're putting out their A team this week against the All Blacks. They are going to be a lot more combative. And this is where I find out the likes of the Geordie Barretts particularly. This is where I find out the likes of the Rico Awanis and what they can do when they're under real pressure, decision-making under pressure. Still haven't seen enough of it over the last 18 months against quality opposition. But yes, a very, very good performance against the Argentinians. Well done to Beauden Barrett. Well done to Ian Foster. Well done to the All Blacks.
Yeah, and I think that it's important just to look at and isolate that particular game, that effort, and actually make the comments that you're making, which is, hey, the All Blacks did play well, regardless of who Argentina put up, regardless of how well they played. It's that age-old adage, isn't it, mate, that you only play as well as the opposition lets you. And we strangled them. We strangled them in the first 11 minutes. And just that glorious running rugby, that attacking at gaps, that playing at pace. Look, this is how the All Blacks are going to have to play at the World Cup, because we saw elements against Argentina, mate, where when it comes to trying to smash our way through the opposition, we're actually quite a light and quite small forward pack, and it's only going to get worse. You'll see it against the Box at Mount Smart this weekend. Look, they're giants, mate. I mean, Australia looked like boys compared to those guys. Against Ireland last year, we got out-muscled. The French are going to only play one way. The Poms at the World Cup, we all know this. They're going to box kick the hell out of it. They're going to play 10-man rugby. It's going to be stop, start, static, penalty to penalty. It's going to be a slugfest. That's how you win World Cup. So, trying to play a different brand of rugby, trying to move the ball quickly, trying to get these guys off balance, create gaps. I like it. I don't know whether or not it's going to win for us, but it's certainly bloody good to watch, and it was against Argentina.
Yeah, you're right. And we can't just go and build big guys. You can't just take a big whole lot of guys out of the gym and say, well, suddenly we've got big guys. It's maybe a shift in the way we develop our rugby talent going forward in terms of trying to, get bigger players or build bigger players in the gym, but at the same time trying to develop the skill. I've said this previously, Martin. The strength of New Zealand rugby historically is that from a young age we've developed the skill, and then later on we've built the player. And I think other countries have sort of built the player and then tried to develop the skill. And then now we're starting to see the Northern Hemisphere, South Africa, getting both right. And it's a bit scary. Look, I just hope that South Africa, and they will, won't they? We'll look to play it fast. We'll look to play attacking rugby, and they will just do everything to slow it down. They'll feign injury. They will take their time at lineouts. And yes, there are new regulations from World Rugby. Referees will be monitoring more of that. But South Africa are going to do everything they can to negate the speed of the game on Saturday. Yeah. And I do hope the referees jump all over it, because it's not good. And if you've got a point of difference, you should be allowed to execute it. You should be allowed to utilise it, as these sides do with their size.
Yeah, the fascination that exists for me, and also people, here we are talking, me and Watto are talking, and we haven't mentioned Sam Kane, and we haven't mentioned the foot trip, and we will get on to that. But I believe it's actually more relevant and more important at the moment to be talking about the performance of the side. And the fascination for me, mate, is going to be the contrast in styles, because the reality of it is, it's like on a football pitch. Greece won the European Championships in 2004. I don't actually think any of their players moved over the halfway line except for a set piece, which is how they scored all their goals, mate. I mean, I'm being a little facetious, but you got to play to your strengths. And these other teams, they don't play the kind of attacking rugby we do. But also, we can't compete against them man on man in terms of hard out forward, grappling, driving, rolling mauls, all of that kind of stuff. It's just not the way we play rugby. And another point to make about, building the skill base and then putting the player on top of that. Look at the performance of our under-20s, mate. They just lost to Australia yesterday. This is the worst performing side we have ever sent over to the World Championships. Now, all of these guys are handpicked out of First 15 rugby. These are your academy players. This is the next generation that New Zealand rugby and all the Super Rugby sides are blowing smoke up the backsides. And, mate, I look at the theatrics involved with their pre-match haka. I don't know what's going on in the back when you walked into a music festival. But I also look at the flashy hand signals and the overzealous celebrations and that. Honestly, mate, I couldn't be more embarrassed watching a New Zealand sports side. I've said that before about the Football Ferns. We'll get on to them because they won last night. But that under-20 side, they should come back hanging their heads in shame the way that they have played, and even worse, the way that they behave.
Yeah, look, Martin, I'm going to tell you this right up now. I'd get rid of the haka at every level for New Zealand sides. I don't think it does us any good. I just think it's a big adrenaline rush, and at some point you come down off that adrenaline rush. I mean, you even go back to All Black sides historically. How bad are we historically a lot of the time in the first 10 to 15 minutes? And you look at the one common denominator, but that's a discussion for another day. But look, I go back to it. I still wonder, even at a schoolboy level, when they pick these schoolboy sides, are they really picking the best players, or have we got to have a bit of a geographical spread? We've got to make sure that players are picked out of not just out of Auckland and other sides. And I see a lot of really good, you take a guy like a Jack Goodhue as an example, outstanding schoolboy footballer, never made New Zealand schools, never made any national representative side. But this goes back to this thing. We've got to make sure we continue to cater for the late developer. It can't be, well, you're in the system at 17 and now you're in the system. And if you're 18 and you haven't been in the system, there's no room for you. And we've got to make sure that, we have fallen into that trap, I think. But look, yeah, it is a big concern. I'm not sure there is necessarily a correlation between how well we do it under 20s and how well we do it at All Black level. But it would be nice to be winning at both levels, wouldn't we? It would be just nice to continue our domination of rugby. But also coaching. Who are the people that are getting these coaching jobs? Is it former All Blacks? Have we got genuine, legitimate coaches out there doing it? I mean, we've said it 100 times before, Martin, but this just simply goes back to all of New Zealand's resource just being put into the All Blacks and the cash cow, and it's all about the money and it's all about the bottom line. I mean, what impact is the death of club rugby having even?
Well, you can tell.
You
can tell the direct correlation of what's happening with these under 20 players. I guarantee if you stop them at the airport as they're coming back in, and I asked that whole squad what club they play for, I bet 90% of them wouldn't have a clue. wouldn't have not played any club rugby, mate. And there is a direct link between that team, because if you look at the current team, about 10 of them actually played in World Cup finals for the under-20s. This is our development process.
Apologise to me!
Let's move on to the Sam Kane thing. And I'm so glad you've been out of the country, because you would have gone apoplectic at this. This is a absolute classic example of a losing mainstream media who are just dropping audience like it's a hot rock, trying desperately to cling to a clickbait way of what used to be called journalism, but these days producing news content. The rest of the world, the rest of the country sitting there going, what on earth did he do wrong apart from try and get somebody who's committing a crime off the pitch? And here he is with New Zealand Rugby making him right, or writing on his behalf, Instagram posts, some kind of faux apology. They're handing out free All Black gear to this guy and trying to sort of drag the All Black captain's name through the mud as though he's actually done something wrong here. I mean, this is the whole, reverse idiocy that we are facing in the world today. That you can speed off from the cops. The cops aren't allowed to chase you, and if something happens, somehow it's their fault because you're doing a runner. I mean, for God's sake, you're on the pitch. That's illegal for a start. What happens to you is little consequence. Get off the goddamn pitch.
Yeah, preaching inverted, Martin. Absolutely. Just clickbait crap. We've just beaten the Argentinians, one of the best performances under the Ian Foster reign. And what's the story? Well, let's make it clickbait. Let's make it about Sam Kane tripping up a pitch invader. And, as you said, Martin, who really damn well cares? A couple of weeks ago, we had Johnny Bairstow lifting up a protester, or was it at Lords or Headingley, and walking him off the field, didn't we? I remember, what was it, back in the 1990s or the early 2000s, when that South African fan ran on and against the All Black South Africa, and I think someone absolutely skiffled him as well.
Yeah, Richie McCord tackled him,
whacking streakers across the bum, and it was all just part of iconic sort of days in one-day cricket. I'm like you. I mean, if this was the captain of the White Ferns, if this was the captain of the Football Ferns in football, do you think that they would get the same coverage? Why don't they spend more time critiquing that Football Ferns team in the build-up to that game against Vietnam? Why don't they actually do some proper journalism? To me, it's not even a story, Martin.
Apologise to me!
All right, well, let's talk about the Football Ferns, and I watched about 50 minutes of it last night. I'll concentrate on our lot to start with. We scored a couple of goals. The first one was pretty soft. It doesn't matter. They crossed the line. As soon as they hit the back of the net, I mean, you're celebrating. I thought our passing was a lot crisper than it has been. The Vietnamese side are really poor, Mark. I mean, they're ranked 6 or 7 places below us, but there's a massive drop-off, which, again, we're not getting reported. There's no actual fact around the journalism of this Football World Cup for women. It's all just puff promotional pieces. The reality of it is that Vietnamese women's side wouldn't beat a team of under 11s from Western Springs, the boys' teams I'm talking about. They really are, technically terrible as well as physically unprepared. They'll go down. They play the United States in their first match, and I reckon it could be easily double figures. The United States, what you've got in women's football, again, it's not being reported, but it's the same in women's rugby. You've got about 4 or 5 or 6 really good teams, and then the drop-off is quite marked. However, let's celebrate, and I'm more than prepared to, the fact that, look, the Football Ferns scored a bloody goal. That'd been the first time in 7 matches. They won a game for the first time in about 12 months, and that is the perfect build-up to a week or so away from now when we play Norway, who are one of those really good teams. We've still got to try and get out of this group stage. We've got to beat the Philippines. That's crucial. We've got to probably get a point out of the other 2 games. Good luck to them. But the positive from it for me was that there was really good intent I saw last night, that they're trying to actually play, and they looked a lot better than I had seen them all year.
Firstly, Martin, you are a chauvinist, you are a misogynist. How dare you even slightly criticise women's football? How dare you, Martin Devlin? Next you'll be saying there's only 3 teams that are really good at the women's rugby World Cup.
I'm sorry, I know.
And somehow
Truth
break
hurts,
the myth that the Black Ferns are as important as the All Blacks, Martin. How dare you? Look, Martin, I just didn't read into it, to be honest. Look, I'm happy to stand up here and give credit to the Warriors when I've been critical of them. More than happy to stand up here and give credit to the All Blacks for that performance in Argentina. But I'm not going to jump up and down about that. Football Ferns, I'm not going to jump up and down. As you said, it's Vietnam, mate. Seriously, Vietnam. I mean, it's easy to play when you're playing against just dreadful opposition, and they're travelling over here. They're not used to our conditions. Yes, of course we can make passes. Of course we can look a little bit more creative in midfield because there's no pressure on us. This Football Fern team has been bloody awful. Klimakova, the coach, should have been sacked a long time ago. There should be a lot more articles around why she still has a job, or a lot more journalists pushing for her to be sacked. But that's not the case. So look, yes, okay, we had a win. But let's not get too excited by it, Martin. I think this World Cup for our women will be an absolute disaster, and the only feedback we'll get from the feminist journalists out there will be, oh, look, we've just got to put more money into the game and somehow make out that, women, there's some still disparity between the men and the women's game, and they'll throw their whole political angle back on us, and that'll be the default setting for it, Martin.
Apologise to me!
Finally, the Warriors then, you must be delighted with that. A 44-point win away at Parramatta. A really crucial game, Mark, because, you lose that, then Cronulla come, and then you got the Raiders, and all of a sudden you're slipping toward 8th, 9th or 10th or whatever in the table. So that was a real confidence boost. A big shame going on at the moment is this, the players' strike, where they've been instructed by their union not to talk to any media, which is just, it's insulting as well as ridiculous, mate. I don't know why, as a fan, I get dragged into this. I pay my money to watch the team. I want to hear from the players. There was a whole lot of milestones to celebrate, which people missed out on. We get no Origin coverage now because of it. And these clowns have been involved in 20 months of negotiation. That's 1,000 plus hours of talks between the union, the Players Association, and the Australian Rugby League Commission. When it gets to that stage, when you've gone for over 20 months and 1,000 hours, you've got to look at both sides and go, get out of the room and get somebody in there that actually wants to settle this, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm just over players, though. I'm just over players, the tail wagging the dog. It's always about me. It's always about more. I look at the behaviour off the field with half of these morons. If it wasn't for rugby league, mate, a lot of these guys would end up in jail, to be perfectly bloody honest. I'm over it. Don't want to talk to the media, fine. Well, when you pick up your big sponsorship deals, don't use the media to somehow go and promote yourself. Don't use the media to somehow get your brand out there, increase your Instagram followers, and somehow capitalise on the commercial deals that you do. Look, going back to the Warriors, mate, I told you at the start of the season the Warriors were the real deal, Martin. I've been on their bandwagon for the last 4 or 5 years, Martin. Yeah. I'm a Warriors diehard, Martin. You know me. I've never said a bad word about any
I know,
of them,
of course
mate.
You do.
I absolutely love Sean Johnson. Got a tattoo of him on me, mate. And it's just disappointing that it's taking you so long to jump on the bandwagon here, Martin. But look, in all seriousness, best performance of the season from the Warriors. We said a week earlier when they lost at home that maybe they were just missing like a Kevin Campion type player. And ironically, they've actually had their 2 worst performances playing at home in the wet. What does that say? You'd expect with all the rain we get that would be a side that are really, really good in the wet, but it's almost looking the opposite. And so look, in hindsight, if you do include the Football Ferns in there, really, really good weekend for New
great
Zealand
weekend.
sport. Hopefully it brings a big smile to everybody's face. It's a big year, isn't it, in terms of Cricket World Cups, Netball World Cups, Rugby World Cups, Women's Football World Cup. I just hope that at the end of the year we are still smiling, because I still think there are some deep concerns. But I again, just going back to the All Blacks, I think this week against South Africa will get a really good measure on where Ian Foster's All Black team is at. And Martin, and just again, I just want to wish genuinely the Black Spoke Racing team that are up here in China all the best in today's stage 3. It's going to be absolutely brutal. But it's just so good to see teams from the Netherlands, Belgium, Italy, Spain here, the Euskadi team who have, regularly feature in the Tour de France. And then there's this New Zealand continental professional team here. And it's very, very cool indeed.
Devlin.
Words matter.
The platform.